Hi guys, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is rumoured to be considering bringing in price caps for basic foods in supermarkets in order to ease the pressure on consumers during the cost of living crisis. Now, social media has been awash with images and examples of price hikes for all types of food. Claire Pearson, whoever she is, was invited on to GB News to talk about this. She claimed it wasn't very conservative and that it would ultimately harm farmers. Now, this is ironic for a reason I will explain. Have a listen.
About another big political story that's out today, which is the government discussing plans for supermarkets to introduce a price cap on everyday items like bread and milk and butter. It feels very 1970s, doesn't it? What do you make of this?
I'm extremely uncomfortable with the government coming in and telling private businesses what they can and cannot charge.
They're not doing that. You even explain yourself later in this interview that it's voluntary. So it's not the government telling businesses what they can and cannot charge. Okay.
It is extremely unconservative. And I also don't think it's going to work. Now, what's being suggested is a voluntary price cap on some items in supermarkets. So if it's voluntary, they don't have to buy into it. But I think that the people that will suffer the most out of any kind of price cap will be those farmers. If you think of dairy farmers who are incredibly low on profit margins, and most of them don't actually make a profit at all, and they've seen their costs increase. So all we're going to do is hurt the farming community, who we absolutely rely upon for these foods.
Oh, so now you're concerned about farming. Now you're concerned about farmers. So we have Brexiteers and Conservatives finally concerned with the welfare of farmers. You know, in the run-up to Brexit, they were telling farmers everything will be wonderful. After Brexit, now that they can't access the workers they need to pick fruit and vegetables, which means that a lot of fruit and vegetables rot in the fields, which is adding extra cost to farming. If they do actually get workers, they have to pay more. So this has to be passed on to the consumer. A lot of the subsidies they used to receive when the UK was a member of the European Union are gone. So this is an extra cost for farmers. And the government is basically telling farmers, just stop farming. So, of course, this is going to drive up prices. I covered this earlier in the week or last week in a video where there was a farmer explaining this to Eileen Foster. I think this was also GB News. But isn't it ironic that Conservatives and Brexiteers suddenly care about farming? Wow.
I wish that we could start looking at a slightly wider range of measures that we could use, like looking at import tariffs, for example, on those foods that we cannot grow in this country, such as bananas, olive oil, coffee, those kind of things.
Okay, but the problem with import tariffs is that this will affect, as you have said here, it may reduce the cost of coffee, bananas, stuff like that, but it won't affect dairy. Unless the dairy has been imported, but I don't think there's a tariff on imported dairy, is there? It depends. But if the tariffs are on things like coffee and bananas, yes, it may bring down the cost to the supermarket, but then you have to rely on the supermarkets passing on that saving. What if they don't? Then you're stuck back to, where you are at the moment. Like a solution, I believe, would be to bring in the price cap, but to compensate both supermarkets and farmers. So to help farmers who are struggling at the moment. And what ways are they struggling? As I pointed out, they can't access the workers they need. Well, allow them to access the workers they need. Help them with rising energy prices. And help them with the rising cost of raw materials. But that all comes at a cost to the taxpayer. And I don't think the Conservatives and Brexiteers want to spend that amount of money. So it's a case of, we'll pretend to care about farmers, but in reality, we don't.
Let's look at the tariffs, which would make more of a difference.
Your cynicism is being shared, as we can see here, by the Daily Express. They're saying that the caps won't work, no chance. And don't forget, the Express is normally very friendly towards Mr. Sunak, and they are having more than a whiff of cynicism. In fact, our viewers have been in touch today saying this feels more like communism than conservatism. So it's the ideology is more important than whether people can put food in their bellies.
You know, we don't want to help ordinary people who are struggling at the moment because that sounds like communism. So it would be better for people to starve. It would be better for people to have to cut back on food or cut back on heating their homes because, well, that wouldn't be conservative. Really, this went in a strange direction. But back to the main point here. If you want to help British farmers, you need to listen to them. And a lot of them are complaining about the consequences of Brexit. So you have to undo that. But you also have to, if you want to help consumers, you need to bring in these price caps, but you have to compensate supermarkets as well. Because a voluntary system really isn't going to work. And import tariffs, perhaps, but they have to be passed on to the consumer. If they're not, then it's not going to help anyone. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.